We ended off last week talking about this discussion of Avram Avinu, that the Ramban calls that his going down to Mitzrayim because of the famine was a chet gadol bishkaga b'shogeg, and we said that Pshat of the Eben Ezra was that, and this helped us explain the bracha of she'asa li kol tzarki, who made all my needs, provided me with my every need. That Avram Avinu, basically the problem was that he knew on his own account that he would be saved and he would have food. He knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would save him. It was not a problem. But he had a problem. He had all those other people with him. He had Nefesh Asher Asu B'char and all his people that were with him. So he said, "How can I can't worry about their. I have to worry about their cheshbon, right? I can't rely on myself for their cheshbon." So what did he do? So he decided we have to go down to Mitzrayim, right? Because on their cheshbon, I have to worry about their cheshbon. So what was the chet? So the Ramban, the Eben Ezra says that Abraham should have realized that he was such a great tzaddik that his chus would have been enough to provide for everybody with him. Now the reason he didn't, obviously Abraham was anivas, but yet there's a chet gadol, but it's b'shogeg. On Abraham Avinu's level, that's called the chet gadol, and the Ramban says because of that we had to go down to Mitzrayim and serve Paro, etc., because of this shogeg of Avraham Avinu. So therefore, Rabbi Shua brought this in because he was saying she'asa li kol tzarki. I say she'asa li kol tzarki. You gave me my needs. When it comes to my needs, I can think of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gave me everything. When it comes to somebody else's needs, right, I have to daven for somebody else. I can't say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you gave him everything. If I feel that somebody else is lacking in something, then I should request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he gives it to him. I should daven, and I should on his behalf, and I should request from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's also li kol tzarki. We said specifically you provided my needs. Okay, so tonight we're going to discuss probably 2 or 3 brachas in Mirz Hashem. So if you just take a look at page 3 on the question sheets, we'll just go through quickly the questions that were going to pop up, and hopefully we'll discuss them tonight. So the first, right at the top of page 3, is the bracha of Asher Heichin Mitzadei Gaver, who firms man's footsteps. And in the Sefer we're going to be on page Mem Ches. So question 18 is like this: why do we use the word Gever and not the common terms Adam or Ish? Right, this one Rabbi Shah is not going to answer. It's something we can all think about. Why are we using Hamechim Mitzadei Gaver and we don't say Asher Heichin Mitzadei Ish, Asher Heichin Mitzadei Adam? What is the word Gever being used for? Question 19, and that obviously, if we understand what the difference is between those, right, then we'll be able to plug it in. The answer. Number 19, with what did he prepare our footsteps? Or how did he prepare our footsteps? What do you mean he firms man's footsteps? How did he do this? And for what reason did he prepare our footsteps? What's he preparing us for? What are we being prepared for? And if you say he firms man's footsteps, how is this bracha different than the bracha we just said, Rokaha Arts Alamayim? That we think the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and as Rav Shah pointed out, it's a bracha thanking Hashem for, as we could terra firma, that we're able to stand on. Right? So who firms man's footsteps, how is this different than the bracha of Rokaha Arts Alamayim, thanking Hashem for spreading out the dry land over the water? So that's one bracha we're going to discuss tonight. The next bracha, Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura, who girds Israel with strength. Question 22 is, the Shulchan Aruch writes like this: this bracha is said when we put on our belt. Okay, so what is the significance of our belt? Why is it so important? Why is the belt so important out of everything that it warrants us saying a bracha? We saw before the shoes, right? But what about the belt? What's so good about the Jewish belt? 23, if this bracha is in reference to a person's belt, then why is it specifically connected to Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura? Right? Goyim also wear belts, right? Non-Jews also wear belts. So what is so special about the Jewish belt?
Is this a Hasidic...
You could go there. I mean, he's not going to explain it like... I mean, it will get into it. Huh?
He's got to be a Hasid, because...
No. He's German. He's Yeki. You kidding?
Yeki?
No, it's the Yeki. He's a German. But you'll see from this, why the Hasidim wear the gartel. But what's so special about the Jewish? What's the whole Iyun? You can discuss what's the whole Iyun of what's the whole, what is it? What's it doing there?
I didn't think it had to do with the belt.
Right, so we'll see. 24. You gird us with strength. What strength are we dealing with? Are we talking about physical strength? We're saying Hashem gives us maybe that's what we're saying. We're saying Hashem gives us physical strength. But then you have to say, okay, then how does the belt tie in with a person's physical strength, right? And 25. What is this strength for? What do we need this strength for? Right? This physical strength. You're saying you stop me, give us physical strength, or we're talking about something else. What is it used for? And maybe tonight, maybe we'll get to the bracha of Oter Yisrael b'Sifara. Let's see the last two questions, 26 and 27. Oter Yisrael b'Sifara, who crowns Israel with splendor. 26. What crown are we referring to? Right? And 27 is, does this bracha specifically apply to men or women included? And if so, what is their crown? Now this might be obvious some people are not, but we'll discuss this hopefully in Mitzvah Hashem tonight. So let us go to page Memches in the Sefer, or on the right hand side, the right hand column, and it starts Asher Heichim Mitzadei Gaver, who firms man's footsteps. So now he says Kenu Girsas Harosh. This is the Rosh's Girsa. Al Avshe B'Gemara Isa Hamechin Mitzadei Gaver. Right, Asher Heichim sounds like in the past tense. It could sound like it means who firms man's footsteps, but who did firm man's footsteps. You know, the Gemara has the lashon, the text Hamechin Mitzadei Gaver, who prepares who firms the steps of man. Upeirusha, and the explanation is Shebechol Ados Ad Brachazu, and all the brachas that we've thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu until now. Harei Ha'adam Toloi Ach V'Rak B'Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're saying that everything till this point in the brachas has been totally dependent on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? We just said you made everything for me. You did it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything you prepared for me. I was all dependent on you. Now, umikan va'elach, but from now on, mutal alav lalechas beraglav v'lashes b'moyadav. Now it's incumbent upon me, on the person, to go and do things with my feet and my hands. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'll explain this after. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu hu hamechin ha'imtzayim sheyuchal lifol. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepares the means that enable me to work or produce with my hands. Hein beruchnius ve'hein begashmius. He enables me. He gives me the means to produce, whether we're talking about physical production or spiritual production. Ukmamar Mazal, as the Chazal told us in Gemara and Shabbos, habol l'tar misayin oiseva habol l'tamei poiskin loy. A person wants to purify himself, they help him out, and one who comes to defile himself, they open up for him. V'hu hanosin biyada adam hakoach livchor aderech yelechba ulahachlit ma lasos. And he's the one who gives man the choice, the power to decide which path he wants to go on and what to do. Meaning like this. Until now we've said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you give me the sight, you give me all the abilities, sight, and you give me my strength, I can stand upright, I have my clothes, I can step on land. You gave me all that.
So this is choice, you're saying.
But now it's up to me, what I do with those. Asher Heichim Mitzadei Gaver means you prepare man's footsteps. You gave me the abilities. Now I have the power now and the ability to choose where I'm going to go. What am I going to do with all these abilities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me? What am I going to do with them now? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you make the choice. But you know what I'm going to do? When you make the choice, I'm going to lead you in that way. Habol l'tar misaynus. A person wants to go, and this, if you remember, we talked about Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz's avart about Bakshu Fanav Talmud, constantly searching out HaKadosh Baruch Hu, seeking him out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you want it so much, then I'll give it to you. Right? A person comes and he wants something, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will enable him to go on that path. If you show HaKadosh Baruch Hu, David Melech says, Chishapti raglai, my feet thought, I contemplated my ways, Chishapti drachai, and I came back to your edus. I came back to your Torah. And Chazal tells us that means David Melech said every day I always thought that I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, and somehow I ended up back in the base medrash. Why? Because David Melech sat in the base medrash the entire time? No, he was the king of an entire nation. But David Melech was constantly involved in Torah learning. He wanted to be. His desire was to be Isaac in Torah, to toil in Torah. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided him with the means to always end up and have the ability to learn. And he was always involved in learning, even when he was in the palace. But he was paskening shilas. Right? He was involved in learning. That's what he was involved in, even though he was the king of an entire nation. And he had a rule. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me abilities. I make the choice, and he leads me on the path that I want to go. And the same way with an Aveira. If a person wants to, and Hashem says that's your strong desire, poskenlo, the doors will be open to you. You are led on this. So Asher Heichim Mitzadei Gaver, you firm man's footsteps, meaning you gave us the ability, now it's up to me to produce, to make the choice to do this or that. And once I make that choice, you prepare the way for me to go on that choice. That's a share. You prepare man's footsteps to go with his decision.
That's why it doesn't say hamechin.
I don't know if it makes a difference. I don't think he's coming to explain the difference between hamechin or asher hechin. I think he's just saying those are the two girsas, but the meaning of the bracha either way is.
So it means giving us the opportunity to go in either direction.
But it's not only that. That's beforehand. Also, he gave me all those abilities. That's the opportunity. Once I make the decision to do right, they're all set out in front of me, right? All the different choices a person can make, right?
Now this is different from Asher Natan Nasach Bivina.
Meaning you gave me my heart because that's specifically for the morning. You gave me understanding.
I wasn't here for that.
Right. So that's talking about the getting knowledge to understand between the night and the morning. Right, but that ability, see, those are all abilities that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. That they only come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But now there is some sort of a person has koach habechira, bechira chafshis. You have free will. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us this ability to decide what we want to do. And now asher heichin mitzad gavar or hamechin mitzad gavar, whichever one you say, says that now once I make that choice, you allow me to go. You help me even. You prepare the way for me to go. You help me along that way. Sometimes a person's going on the wrong path. The Kadosh Baruch Hu will also send somebody there to, get him back on track. But that's what this bracha is saying, that you ferment. So this is very much different than the bracha of Rokah Haaretz Alam Mayim, according to this, right? This is not by any means talking about physical man's footsteps. Rokah Haaretz Alam Mayim meant you gave us dry land that we can walk on. This is talking about a whole different ballgame here.
Now that we're walking, you're providing me direction. No, you're providing me the opportunity to go which direction my feet take me.
Right. You're helping
on the
me,
dry land.
Right. You're helping me out with my decision, and he's saying it's either whether it's ruchnis or gashmis, either way.
Right.
Either way.
But there's no difference with the lashon there, heichin or hamechin.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know, I'm not the biggest of the Bali Dupin here that I would know, but I don't think in pshat that he's saying. I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Okay. Ad Khan, and that's why these next brachas, if you're going to notice, he's going to say, he's going to explain what the next set of brachas, how they're connected. Ad Khan, until now, let's continue. Boa brachas al seder ha'olam hanoheg b'chol hamin ha'anoshi. Until now, the brachas have all been talking about what goes on in the world with all people. You give vina lahavchim midiyom avein laila. You give sight to the blind. You give clothes. We're upright and we're not constrained. We have dry land. That applies to all mankind. But now that we've made this bracha, saying how Kadosh Baruch Hu helps us out on our path after we made a choice, He gave us this power of choice. As we have explained, Shabachira hazos tzricha lios karoi ukiyos labar Yisrael livchar b'tov v'limos bara. Hakadosh Baruch Hu gave us the choice to do good and not to do good, but he's saying it is very proper and fitting that the choice that we make should be the proper choice that we should for a Jew to choose in good and to despise evil. Va'alkein maschil b'bracha hamiyuchedes liYisrael. That's why now we're going to start, you see, Ozer Yisrael b'gvura, Oter Yisrael b'sifara. We're going to talk about, and he's even going to say the bracha of Hanasin Le'yav Koach refers to Jews. It's going to get a little bit more specific when we're talking about Klal Yisrael. Because now when we talk about the Koach HaBechira that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us, the power of choice, he's now going to say, these things are going to aid us in, what we're going to talk about, these brachas are going to aid us in making the proper choices.
It's interesting how you would think the next bracha would be, thank you for giving us Shuvah.
Right, after some of the choices.
Yeah.
But he's telling these things are going to help us out, aiding us on to choose the right. Even though Hashem gives us the choice, right? You can say, I have the choice, I can do what I want. That is true. But obviously, a person should make the right decisions, right?
Right.
And you have to, sometimes it's great, you don't know what the right decision is, that's the problem, right? But you're supposed to...
I feel like our whole religion is based upon Shuvah and trying to do the right thing.
Well, you're trying to do the right thing, yeah.
Trying to do the right thing,
yeah.
But even if we didn't do the right thing, we are provided an opportunity to rectify that mistake.
Sure, 100%. So that's what we're going to start, these brachas. These brachas are going to start with, are going to have the word Yisrael in them. Now they're going to get specific to Klal Yisrael. So let's go to the next bracha.
It's still, that's for all of mankind.
Yeah.
Giver is what translates like gentleman?
Man. But that's you have to know why. I don't know. Somebody who knows diktuk or knows these words well.
That's one of your questions.
Yeah, why is it gever, not adam or ish?
You don't know.
No, he doesn't discuss that. But that's something.
It's not a general term for like mankind. Like when you say the proverbial man.
I think Adam is more for all of mankind.
It is, but there is a atam kruyim adam. The goyim are not called adam. So we're going to get to that a little bit later on. We'll see that. But Adam might refer to Yisrael alone. So I don't know, but sometimes why not, right? So yeah, that's the way it goes. That's right. That's the way diktuk goes.
But here, gever means man.
Man. Yeah. But now that we're talking about that, he said, but when we talk to us, we have to know to make the right decision. So these are the things that Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us to help us out. Okay, we're on page Mem Ches at the bottom.
Hashem also opens the door or leads goyim and they decide what to do.
Everybody, yeah. Man has the power of decision, power of choice, and he says it's not only ruchnius, it's also in gashmius. We shouldn't think that. The guy says, "Hakadosh Baruch Hu, let him run my life. Everything else will just stay out of my business. Let me run my business." It's not how it works. He knows. He helps you along with that also. What you're supposed to make, what you're not supposed to make. That's all. Hakadosh Baruch Hu decides upon and helps you out.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ozer Yisrael b'gvura, who girds Israel with strength. Ubegamaru v'shulchan arach isa. The Gemara in Shulchan Aruch says, "Mevarchem brachazu k'shechol hachagura." When we tie our belts, we say this bracha. V'tachlis hachagura. What is the purpose of a belt? Now remember, Ozer Yisrael. Well, the purpose of a belt is shelo yehi libo ra es ha'erva, that the top of your body should not see the bottom of your body. Right? The lave should not see the bottom part of the person. And he says, when we close our pants, right? You close up your pants. It's the same thing. Tosfos talks about it over there in Shabbos. Now, ubira hefsek. What do we need this hefsek for? This separation? Because in the person's body, we have the upper part. The upper part of the body, physical. They perform the very most important tasks of a person. Klei hadam, v'klei haneshima u'mochel, right? You have your brain, you have your lungs, you have your heart, you have your liver, your kidney. All these things are on the upper part of a person's body. Excuse me. He calls the lower part of the body perform what's called the more animalistic tendencies or functions of a person. Umafsikim beinehem b'chagura, we make a separation with our belt, lahoros to teach ala tchum shebeinehem. There's a border. V'shelo yashpia hachelek hagashmi v'anefesh habahamis al chelek ha'elyon shel ha'adam. We don't want the lower part, the physical aspect of the person, the bahamis, the animalistic tendencies to have an influence on the upper part of the person, which is the chelek ha'elyon, the upper part where the neshama is, right, and the seichel and the lave of a person. We don't want that in a spiritual sense to have an impact on the chelek ha'elyon. The only thing I had with this is that, shouldn't we want the other way to happen? Shouldn't we want our seichel and our neshama, like we're making this boundary so it doesn't go up down. Why shouldn't we want it to go this way? Why shouldn't we want the chelek ha'elyon? I mean, we do, right? We want the chelek ha'elyon, our seichel, our leif, to be in control of our animalistic tendencies. So it sounds like we're making a border because we don't want the two to mix. We don't want it to the Bahamas. Oh, that doesn't work the other way though. We should want to not have a separation. So why? So this could have. What are we so worried about? Let's do
tikkun olam.
Tikkun olam. You do whatever you want, but we want to make sure there's a separation. I just don't. It's a little bit a question why should we make that? Let's say we don't make a separation. Why? Because we want the neshama, the seichel, to overpower, to have an influence on our animalistic tendencies. But no, it's like we're very afraid of the animalistic, the bahamias having an influence on the Elois.
That's a general theme, though. We make machitzas around the evil things. We separate from the bad stuff, right? Isn't that continually themed out throughout Yiddishkeit?
We try and stay away. We always try and make it, even the Rabbanon, we want to make sure to stay away from certain things, right? We try and stay away. That is a good point.
What you're saying is true, but if you're in a more spiritual atmosphere, you don't need to guard yourself as much because generally everybody doesn't even think in a certain manner. We don't act in a certain manner. But the more we are in gullus, I think we have to make more of a separation because there's a lot more temptation and there's no getting around it. So sometimes physical boundaries, something you can see, really can clarify or maybe help you separate a little bit more.
I will agree with you, but I will tell you, the Gemara in Sukkah talks about how in the Beis HaMikdash, there would be a oil l'regel, they used to have the mechitza on the same floor, but then they had to separate the men and women. They had to put the women
on the top. Yeah.
Then, at first, though, they were on the same level. Then they had to put them on top. I'm talking in the Beis HaMikdash,
yes.
on Aliyah l'regel, right?
Like
and what they were still worried about the Yetzer Hara. You know, even you have to. So the woman's not allowed to have yichud in a cemetery. What does it mean? If Rahman al-Islam, her baby is nifter, she wants to go bury, she shouldn't have yichud in a cemetery.
Right.
When
the Beit HaMikdash is like something
you have to be very careful with the Yetzer Hara. You're right.
Yeah.
But just to say, and you're not saying this, I know you're not, but just say I'm in a spiritual environment, so
let's take off our belts.
Yeah, be careful. Let's take off our mechitas now. You have to.
Sure.
The Yetzer Hara knows is very smart. So you're right, but mitzad sheni, we have to always be aware that the Yetzer Hara is looking for that opportunity to zap.
Always.
So that's why we have that mechitza. V'inyan zeh miyuchad levnei Yisrael. This matter is specific to Klal Yisrael. Shebetzuvim b'Torah u'b'mitzvos asher al yideim yuchlu lahargiz Yetzer Tov al Yetzer Hara. We are commanded to do mitzvahs. And through our mitzvahs, what are we able to do? We're able to incite the Yetzer Tov over the Yetzer Hara. Right? We're able to let the Yetzer Tov, we do mitzvahs, so the Yetzer Tov beats out over the Yetzer Hara. V'zel ozer Yisrael, you gird Klal Yisrael, daiko, specifically Klal Yisrael, bigvura, you give us strength. What is strength? Not physical strength. Lahagbir haruach ala geshem, to make the ruach, to enable the ruach, which is the ruchnius part, overpower the gashim, the gashmius, v'abahamius tishtabed v'tishamish l'ruchniuso, to the point where we're going to take the bahamius, the physicality, and we're going to use that to avodas Hashem. That's how much it's going to happen. So Hashem gives us a gvur, right? Ezel Gibor, the Mishnah says in Avos, who is a strong person, Hakol V'Shis Yisrael, whoever is able to suppress his Yetzer. Right? That's what we're talking about. The strength we're talking about is not physical strength, we're talking about spiritual strength. Therefore, the bracha, Ozer Yisrael, right, the reference to the belt, we make this separation. Why? Because through the separation, so now we have the seichel, we have the ruchnius, and we have below we have the bahamius, the gashmius. Ozer Yisrael, you gird us with this strength, which are the mitzvahs in the Torah, to make the seichel, the neshama, the ruchnius overpower the bahamius, the gashmius, to the point where we're able to use the gashmius for service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
When we make a bracha, we make a bracha and we do what we're supposed to do, generally, except for Chomet L'Sudai for different reasons. But in this case, some people, not everybody has a gartel, and not everybody wears a belt. So are you saying a bracha?
No. So first of all, right, you weren't here, but we said at the beginning, originally these brachas were set up as a person goes through the morning, as he does these actions, he should say the bracha. We don't do that anymore. We all say them together. That's first of all. So that's A. B is, this is not necessarily referring to a gartel. Referring to a belt, and he said even according to Tosfos, when you close your pants. That's B. C is...
When you close your pants.
Yeah, when you put on your pants. That's the separation between the upper and the lower.
Right, okay.
That's B. C is... maybe it's the same share, but we said that there's certain brachas, even though you don't do them. Let's say does a blind person does he say that bracha? He will, because he's talking about the way of the world, right? So we're saying over here that the strength we're talking about is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the girds Israel's strength. We're saying that's a spiritual that everybody has, no matter if you wear a belt, you don't wear a belt, you still have this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're saying a bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the Torah and mitzvahs that enable the top part to overpower the bottom part of our bodies. So even if you're not wearing a belt, it's not really...
in more Iyun Tefillah, it's like more not about the
not about the physical, it's more... Yeah. Okay. Because if you talk of physical strength, then what is Ozer Yisrael got to do there? Hashem gives with strength, right? It girds Israel. Right. What does Israel have to do with anything? Just talking about physical strength, he gives many people physical strength, not just Jews, right?
I think to endure, to go on.
We're going to talk about that. Very good. I mean, not in this bracha, in another bracha. That's keep that in mind. Okay, so let's continue. Well, kavana zu, and on this thought, tavu chachamim bebracha she'omrim achar bris milah. We have a bracha after the bris milah that we say like this: Tzavei la'atzil yedidus she'ereinu. Issue the command to rescue the beloved soul, mishachas, which is l'man brisa asher sam b'tzarenu. So we say like this. I look up the translation. Say like this: issue the command to rescue the beloved soul within our flesh from destruction, for the sake of His covenant that He has placed in our flesh. Right? We were talking about bris milah. So she yedidus zu tricha pirush. What does it mean? Help save our yedidus, our beloved soul. What is yedid? Is a friend. What are you saying? Yedidus. It's a close friend. It says Ela shebe'emes, in truth, he snagdus. I think we've talked about this. He snagdus haneshama haruchnius imachomer shalaguf. He yosim masha ish misnagid l'mayim. Water and fire don't mix, right? And they're two opposites, right? They cannot coexist. He said more than that, the neshama, the spirituality of the body, cannot exist with the physicality, with the guf. So we know there's right. The fire and water are two opposites. They don't mix with each other. So too, he says more than that is the battle between the ruchnius and the gashmius. That's what's going on. Va'ayidei bris hamila, and through the bris milah, shechosem ha'adam b'makom mekor hatayva bahamis. On that place, he says, which is the makar, which is the essence, that's the place where the taiva of a person, the physical taivas of a person come from. And what does he do? He makes a bris milah there. What he does is that he suppresses the body on that area, and he suppresses it to the neshama. He does a ruchnius dika action, even though it's a physical action, but he makes this sign in that place which suppresses the taivas for the neshama to take over. And he says, and then the balance becomes a little bit better. That there's more neshama than guf. V'hamila po'eles yedidus she'erenu shehaguf hanikra she'er. The body is called she'er, the remnant. Misyaded iman neshama. Now the body is able to work together with the neshama. Basically, a person comes out, right, and before he has a bris milah, he's total guf. He's total guf, right? You make a bris milah, you make an ice, you make this sign between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this special bris. You do a ma'isa there, a physical ma'isa, which has tremendous spiritual ramifications. What that does is that suppresses the bahamis, the guf of the person, and now the neshama is able to work with that guf, even though they're constantly fighting with each other. But now the neshama is able to use also the guf in its service. And that's the point of a bris milah. And that's why they're called yedidim. Tzavei lahatzli yedidus she'erenu. They're able, the she'er, which is the body, is able to work yedidus with togetherness, with closeness with the neshama now. Even though etzem gashmis and ruchnis fight with each other, but now they're able to work in tandem for avodas Hashem. And that's what happens at a bris milah. That's just derech hagav. Okay, next bracha. We continue to make the bracha who crowns Israel with glory. What is it talking about? Sheba al kisa arosh, the head covering of a yid. Asher zeh gamkein davar hamiyuchad Yisrael. This is something which is specific to Klal Yisrael. Now there are goyim who cover their heads, right? But if you want to identify a Jew, the first thing you look for is yarmulke, right? That's the first thing you look for in a Jew. If you want to know, I mean, not that there are some Jews who, for whatever reason, right? There's some Jews for whatever reason that they don't wear. But if you want to know who a from Torah Jew is, you look for the yarmulke, right? And that's something, you don't look for turban. You don't look for these things. You look, the yarmulke is something very specific to Klal Yisrael. It's the same thing as we've been talking in the bracha of Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura, the previous bracha. A person has to realize you are surrounded by malach, by angels. As we say in Pirkei D'Rabbi, Mimini Michal, on my right hand is Michal, the malach, Michal, Umismali on my left is Gavriel, Umilfana in front of me is Uriel, Umeachara is Raphael, the malach Raphael is behind me. Sheyesh la'adam kesher imelite hayosher behind the dafka idekim mitzvah Hashem. Through the mitzvahs, when we fulfill the mitzvahs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person has a connection with these different malachim who help him out. They're melite hayosher, which are not prosecuted defendants. They help you out. Through Torah mitzvahs, you had to create more of a connection. Ukumoshe kasav Rambam b'lashon hazav. The Rambam with his golden lashon, he says. Amru, the Chacham Arishonim. The Chacham Arishonim in Gemara Menachos have said, Kol mi sheyesh lo tefillin barosho u'vizro v'tzitzis b'bigdo, A person wears tefillin on his head and on his arm. He wears tzitzis on his garments. He has a mezuzah on his door. You want to know how you're not going to sin? You have all these things. It is for sure. He's fortified himself that you should not do averos. Because look, everywhere you walk, everywhere you go, you have your tzitzis, you have your tefillin, and you have a mezuzah in your house. You're surrounded with reminders.
Only in a perfect world.
If you train yourself the proper way, right? Rabbi Miller said, "What's mezuzah there? Mezuzah is just a focal point to remind yourself every time before I go into a room, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there." Look, he said, train yourself to look at anything. Look at anything. Look at that doorknob and say, "You see that doorknob? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there." Because Melo Chalar is Kavod, it's all over the place. And mezuzah is a focal point, right? You're supposed to. If you look over there, because out of habit, we don't think about it. But if you think about what's there, you think of the parshas of Shema, the Mishmai Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and reminds you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. He's in this room.
But I think people also have the approach and the attitude that because I wear the kippah, because I wear the tzitzis, because I'm
good enough.
So what if I behave like this? So what if I do this? I think it's still very much,
Maybe it requires training. You're right. I mean, the pasuk says, "Re'isa moso uzkartem," right? You see them, you see this, and you remember.
Just because they're there, the reminders, sure, fine. They could be a reminder, and they can help definitely if they weren't there. They weren't there.
Right. If they weren't there, right.
Yeah.
You're right. A person knows, right? They are reminders. And Al-Chinami, you're right.
Right there. It
But also,
mean they
look, just like everything else. But just like everything else in Avodas Hashem, it requires training, right? You go through davening your whole life and say, "I'm davening," but when you start looking into it, it's a whole different ballgame. Even though it's something you do every day, right? But once you start slowing down and you see exactly what you're saying, you go through it and say, "Hey, wait a second, it's a little bit different than what I've been doing every day." So, like everything in Avodas Hashem, that's what it's there for. That's the potential. You have to go ahead and unlock that potential. You have to go ahead and, right? We have to make Habal l'Tara Messiah. So you have to make the first step, though, right? You have to. It says, Hashem says, "I'm going to bring you back on eagle's wings," right? That's what we're going to go on Kanfei Nesharim, eagle's wings. Sham from Paul Hirsch says, what is specifically an eagle? So some people say because it carries it on its back, right? And if people shoot up, it doesn't hit the babies. All of the birds carry it like this, so the babies are in danger. But the eagles, right? The babies are above, right? Sham from Paul Hirsch says, how do you get onto the back though? The nest is over here. The bird is a little bit away. You have to make the jump onto the back. You have to make that first jump onto the eagle, and the eagle will take you. That's how it works with Avodas Hashem. It's there, but you got to make the jump. You have to tap into the power. You have to plug yourself in, and then you can unlock the potential that's there. So right? A person has all these things around him, and he's saved from Averis. And he's talking, these are the malachim that save a person, right? We need to be saved from Averis. But since we have all these malachim, Shenamri brings a pasuk, Chona malach Hashem slaviv l'reva yechaltem. Hashem encamps, malach Hashem, malachim, encamp around those who fear Hashem, and they release them. They maybe release them from the slavery of their taivas and save them, prevent them from sinning. That's what the Rambam says. So when a person does Torah mitzvahs, va'az al roshi shchinas kel. The last part of that is mimini michael, mismael gabriel, milfanai riel, mechar ripal. Val roshi, on my head is shchinas kel. Right? I have a HaKadosh Baruch Hu above me. Shashchina shora al misha mekayim mitzvahs. You do mitzvahs, Shechina is with you. Hashem is with you. Shechina meloshem shachin. What does Shechina mean? Shachin means to rest, means to dwell. Hamora alaha yiskarba sheben HaKadosh Baruch Hu la'adam, which teaches a person's connection, the closeness that Hashem has with a person. You do mitzvahs, that brings HaKadosh Baruch Hu closer to you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shachin, he's dwelling with you. He's there. Ukamosh mafshikim bein ha'chelak ha'elyon shel adam, dainu tafkidav ha'ruchnim l'chelak ha'tachton v'tzilchunosav ha'bahamis. Just like we make a separation from the top half of our bodies to the lower half of our bodies, which we explained with the Ozer Yisrael B'Gvura, we have to make a separation between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Shechina, and our minds, our heads. He says, Shekafi Erech, he explains, Shekafi Erech Hashivas Halev Klapei Ha'erva. Right, we obviously understand the importance of, let's say, the heart over the lower part of a person's body, right? That's the important. That importance, more than that, Ken Yarbe Pi Kama, much more than that, is the Erech Hashchina HaKadosh Neged Piskas Koach HaSeichel Shavina HaEnoshi V'Chachmasa V'Daito. So too, how much more so is the Erech, is the value of the Shechina, the worth of the Shechina HaKadosha, in contrast to the Piskas is the apex. the apex of the power of our seichel, right? So just like we know the value of the heart over the lower part of the body, so too is the Shekhinah so much more, I mean even much more so, over the seichel of a person. And therefore we have to make, just like we make a distinction between the heart and the lower part of the body, so too we make a distinction, which is our yarmulke, between the Shekhinah and our mind. V'lechein amru Chazal, so Chazal said in Gemara and Shabbos, Kasi Reishech, cover your head, Ki hechi titahavu alecha imsa deshmaya, so you'll have yira shamayim, you'll have fear of heaven. Sham is bonin bazeh, yochazemo yira upachad me'akadosh baruch hu. Look what he said, Sham is bonin bazeh. If you thought about, you have your yarmulke all day, but it's not going to do anything unless you're misbonin, unless you look into it, you think about your yarmulke. You say, why do I have a yarmulke on my head? What is it doing there? What's the purpose of it? What's the message? If I'm misbonin, and the same thing with the mezuzah that sits is tefillin. If I'm misbonin, that's why some people before they put on tefillin say hi ratzon, hinni mechavin, what the kavanas are. I might not think it the entire time, but it should go through. I know what I'm doing. I know the reasons why I'm doing it, right? If I look into my yarmulke, I think about my yarmulke, so then I'll think, hey, what's it there for? What's the taka doing? What's its purpose? I'll realize, it's supposed to separate because the Shekhinah is above me when I do mitzvah. The Shekhinah is here. If I know the Shekhinah is in front of me, I'm surrounded by malachim. You'll start to act a little bit different. Eventually.
Your question in terms of the separation of the upper body and the lower body, you were like, you should unify those, right? But I actually find that more in this case, where we want to actually separate that boundary between us and Hashem. We want to be closer to Hashem, not to create a boundary. Unless you're saying that boundary is there to just remind us Hashem is, of course, above us. Or his Shekhinah is.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Maybe that's the point he's saying, that we have to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, we could think that like, our minds are like, that's the big thing of a person, our intellect, our this.
This is what what can make us appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu even more.
Right.
When we remove that boundary and we see him more around us, not making a boundary, because when we make a boundary, you sort of it's like it becomes.
But first you have to realize that there is a boundary between. You shouldn't think like I'm so smart, I'm this. A person shouldn't get a gaval lev, shouldn't get a haughty heart about the whole thing. The person starts to be snubby. It's very hard for him to have fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want to have Yirah Shamayim, proper Yirah Shamayim. First, you have to realize.
Know your place.
Yeah. And you have to realize, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as high as you think you are, as intellectual as you think you are, as smart as etc., there's a boundary, there's a separation. And you don't come anywhere near to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously. Right? As with everybody's milas. Not specifically, I'm saying with everybody's milas, we don't come near to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But you have to realize that. If you realize you're separate, you have to realize that if you realize there's a difference between you and the king, right? You'll come to fear the king, right? You come to realize who the king is, right? No, you realize who the king is, right? But if there's no, what's the difference? He's a man, I'm a man. What's the big deal? Right? Then you don't have that yira that you're supposed to have. When you think, this is that separation between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so it brings you to fear him more. The highest form of crowning for a Jew, a male, is tefillin sheminiach b'chol yom. The tefillin we put on every day is our crown. Ulchein minhag Frankfurt shebetisha b'av shemanichim atefillin bein arbaim. Right on Tisha B'av we do not put on tefillin in the morning, right? As in the morning as a sign of mourning, morning, right? Sign of mourning. We don't put them on Tisha B'av in the morning. We put them on actually at mincha in the afternoon. Ein mavarchim bracha zu b'shachris ela bein arba'im. So the minhag of Frankfurt, the Frankfurt minhag, was taka to not say this bracha in shachris. We do say it in shachris, but they said it tefillin our crown. We're going to say it only at mincha. That's when we're going to say this bracha when we put the tefillin on. Now he brings in women a little bit, and later on when he talks about putting on the talis and tefillin, he was going to get much more into why women do not wear tefillin. But he says just short here. He says v'gam anoshim, women afav b'she ein lam kisei rosh utefillin. They don't wear yarmulkes and they don't wear tefillin. Yesh lehem mitzvahs hasnias. They have to cover their hair. Uvenesuas tznias. Uvenesuas nichal b'chiyuv kisui se'er rosham. And married women is the requirement for them to cover their hair, their head, the hair on their head. Asher zuhi hatifer shel Klal Yisrael. The head covering of a woman, he said, this is the tifer, this is the beauty, the splendor of Klal Yisrael, that the men cover their heads with the yarmulke, and our crown is the tefillin, and the women have their tznius of covering their head, their hair on their head. And he said later on in the bracha of Tifas Talis, he's going to explain more this in of why women don't wear tefillin, etc., etc. All right.